Greetings, fellow humans. Bad Mark here with another transmission from Metre Keyboards, and today we're taking a look at the M1V5, the fifth iteration of this very popular aluminum 75% from Monsgeek. Now, there is said to be a number of improvements with this model, and I know for one, I've been excited to take a look at it. The holidays have been a little crazy, but I finally had the chance to do it. I do want to include this. I'm going to upgrade from the M1V3 to the M1V5 just because I believe the M1V3 has already been discontinued, and this basically is replacing both the M1 and the M1W, because from what I understand, that's a 3-mode. So without further ado, let's go ahead and open it up and see what we have in the box. We're met with very handsome packaging. That's something that has been good norm from both Akko and Monsgeek as their sister companies. So we do have a user manual. Lets us know of all the shortcuts available to us already programmed in there, as well as the switch that sits under the caps lock key. And we have something that has always been appreciated from Akko and Monsgeek, is a quality control, quality assurance card. So you know a human being has taken a look at everything, ensured that things work and that the correct things are in the box. Looks like we have two accessories box. First one has a dedicated keycap puller and an IC style wire switch puller. We have the 2.4 gigahertz dongle, a purple colorway with the Monsgeek logo on it, which is greatly appreciated. And I've received a pre-built version of this, so it comes preloaded with the Akko Piano Pro V3 linears, which I believe I've reviewed. I know I've reviewed other keyboards with it. I'm pretty sure I've done a review. If not, then one will be incoming. And in the other box, we have a matching color, rubberized, coiled USB-A to USB-C cable. I have to admit, Monsgeek and Akko cables are my favorite, and I hoard these. I have a special spot for these because these are the only cables I use, and they're quite durable. Even my kids use these, and as much as they beat their tech up, these continue to work quite well. So I'm always appreciative of a new one of these. And here we are with the Monsgeek M1 version 5. Thankfully, Monsgeek is always pretty good about including a dust cover. You want your keyboard to last as long as it possibly can. Using one of these when the keyboard's not in use is going to keep it free of a lot of dirt and stuff that's in the air. So as we can see, we have a very lovely hunk of aluminum. We have what does it say on here? Monsgeek keyboard. It looks like it. Oh, okay, yeah, it's just a little rubber plug. Huh. Well, that's interesting. That's quite interesting. So we do have a pre-built. Looks like we have some front or side shine through keycaps, and we have a topographic keycap style. Akko, they've always been known for their switches, but they've always had really good keycap sets. I have quite a few, probably at least 24. Most of them that came in the they were called the gift box sets or the memorial sets, something like that. But I've always loved their keycaps. We'll have to see what these look like turned on. We have a very nice flat or lower but wider knob that has a very satisfying click to it. We have a 75% expanded layout with a 4-key navigation column and 1U modifiers on the right of the spacebar. We do have an F13 or a top delete, depending on how you like to map it. And I must say, this keyboard does sound quite lovely stock. So let's go ahead and take off the knob real quick. We see that This aluminum knob that has a plastic inner collar. We'll go ahead and show you one of the new tricks the Monsgeek M1 has learned. Quick disassembly. Now, for all of those of us that like to get into the keyboard and mess around and check things out and change the sound profiles, we have an easy way in. We have the ball latch system. Basically, the keys that go into the latches unlock the top aluminum case in place. It doesn't lose any of its rigidity. It stays nice and firm, and it gives us full access in case we want to modify foams or do any sort of modifications. Below that, we see that we have the connections to the daughter board, and it does seem to have, almost looks like, I wouldn't say a waterproof plug, but it almost seems to be encased in its own like protective. I doubt it has any water or dustproof rating on it, but I'm interested to find out more, because that's one thing I don't know about. We see that we do have a JST cable here connecting to a separate rotary encoder knob, and we do have a PET layer stickied onto the bottom of the PCB. So I'm also going to guess we probably got HiFI layers above the PCB. So we have a very accessible 75% keyboard, aluminum frame, an easy open system, like I said, I don't know if that's meant to be like waterproof, but it's like, I kind of like it there. Yeah. And a nice knob. Let's go ahead and turn it on, but go with the, I know a lot of folks will say that they would like to switch elsewhere, but that would interfere in the design of this keyboard, and I know my opinion isn't, your opinion is the one that matters the most, but for me, because I carry around a keycap set, because I, on average, do things with keyboards, it's not that much of an issue to me, but I could understand how some people find that a little bit, kind of a pain in the butt. But in the end, it does keep the design much simpler and more solid. But like I said, to me, it's not that much of an issue. But yes, I prefer to use a plastic tool like a spudger, and turning it up, I believe, will put us into wise 2.4. I'm going to go ahead and plug in the 2.4. All right, so the 2.4 connected almost immediately. I believe I put it in Mac mode. I believe down is Windows mode. Let me put it down there, and then, yep. So down is Windows wireless mode, middle is Windows wired mode, and top is Mac mode and wireless Mac mode. The sign through legends on keycaps, they look really nice. Let's see if we can find a single color. Keyboard has a nice weight to it. It is definitely not the lightest. It's not the heaviest keyboard, but it's definitely, I would say it's ranked on the heavier side for most, 75% aluminum, which just means that they're using probably a better grade of aluminum as it's heavier. Now, it does have those 2 batteries in there, so it's also going to have a good amount of juice. Obviously, running it without lights or the RGB will give you more time, but if you set it to charge, and please, I know USB-C is USB-C, and there are protective measures already in place, but the 65 watt, say, USB laptop charger shouldn't be used on a keyboard. I prefer to just either charge it off of one of the old cheap USB bricks that are no more than 1 amp, or off a port on my actual computer or laptop. But that's just me. All right, so let's go ahead and give Bluetooth a try. Bluetooth was actually pretty quick, which is nice. the USB Bluetooth adapter I have on this PC is a little finicky. Sometimes it gives me a bit of trouble, but it connected right away. It showed me both a Bluetooth 3.0 and a 5.0 connection. But yeah, it was pretty quick, even with my quirky USB, though. I believe there was recently a Linux kernel update that may have addressed the issue with that particular chipset, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So anyway, we have a lovely 75% keyboard. Like I said, I am finishing up the 75% video. I'm going to be doing a overview and doing as best as possible to provide an apples to apples comparison between many of the popular 75% aluminum keyboards that came out over the last year and that will obviously be available into the new year, and provide my thoughts on them, as well as sound tests and links to the reviews, as all of them will have a review by then. I do have this review and one more review to do that I'm going to be including because everyone has asked me to include these, so I'm making sure to get it done. But just in case, I had previously filmed a lot of the video and lost the footage due to a long story, but usually I'm protected, but that was my fault. Anyway, this, like I said, this is the fully built one from Monsgeek, but they do have it as a kit as well, as they have with, I believe, all of the M1s that they've released so far. But like I said, I recently took a look at the V3. The V3 is still a great keyboard, so I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some aftermarket vendors that have some in stock. They're probably going to have it a lot cheaper, but if you're willing to spend a little bit more, you're going to get a lot more features, especially if you plan to go in there and you want to create your specific sound profile, which like I said, I believe this keyboard will probably allow for numerous different sound profiles. I'm very confident I could get it to Thock, and with the right switch and the right setup of foams, I'm very sure that this could get very clacky or very clicky. However way you may want to make it sound, this keyboard, I think, will lend itself to that with the right combination of switches and keycaps and foams on the inside. But again, you have easy access. You don't have to go find a bit, get a tray, set stuff up to open it up, and be very, very careful, because you don't want to strip a screw or strip a hole. You just pull off the top. I mean, all you got to do is pull the knob off first, and obviously, yes, the knob can be replaced. It'll take any D knob, 6 millimeters, and it looks like it has a 5-minute sleep. Most any key press should bring this out of sleep. We see here we can cycle through either rainbow or some actual preset colors. Then we're going to go ahead and plug in the Monsgeek cable over the little rubber protectant. Just the specs. Today we are taking a look at the Monsgeek M1V5, the 5th iteration in this very popular aluminum keyboard series. This one is a 3-mode QMK and VIA aluminum 75% with a knob. It also has a quick release ball catch open mechanism. It has a gasket mounted PC plate, a 3 and 5 pin hot swap PCB with IXPE layers, as well as support for screw-in stabilizers. It is available in either a bare bone kit or a pre-built keyboard. It is also available either in an ANSI or ISO layout. It has a wide variety of choices for switches and keycaps, should you choose to build it yourself by selecting components. This keyboard comes weighing in at 1,768 grams, fully built. It has a battery capacity of 8,000 milliamp hours. The chin of this keyboard sits at 22 millimeters above the typing surface, while the back sits at 34 millimeters, providing for an angle of typing of 7 degrees. The MSRP of this keyboard starts at $89.99 and goes up from there, depending on options chosen. Links below. first off, I want to apologize. There's been a little bit of break between the first half of this video and this half. I caught a bug and it had me out there for a little while. Anyway, thankfully, though, that gave me a chance to actually get a hold of another one. One of these is from Akko, one of these is from Monsgeek, but obviously they're the same keyboard. Monsgeek and Akko are sister companies. But it gives me a good comparison, especially once we get to the sound test, so that we can show the differences between the options that you have. Now, I don't have an ISO layout, but obviously they're going to sound very similar, minus the enter key, because it is a little bit bigger. It's going to probably sound a little bit more like the space bar. But this one is loaded with white on black ASA keycaps and rosewood switches, so it has definitely a much deeper tone to it. Rosewood is, it's not a silent switch, it's a quiet switch, but the sound that it does make tends to stay in the low pitch. So it's definitely, if you're looking for something thocky, creamy, but something that you can still use in a work environment without people becoming upset, I think that the rosewood kind of hits that perfect spot. You still want sound, but you don't want, you know, to disturb people, basically. But with this one, we have the Piano Pro switches. We have the topographic cool keycaps with the side or front shine through legends for those that prefer to have shine through legends. I mean, everyone, that's the beauty of mechanical keyboards and customizing them. I mean, you know, some people will say, well, this is a custom keyboard and this is not. It's like, did you pick anything on that keyboard? Did you change anything out? I mean, customizing it is literally, even if it's just changing the color of the knob, you've now customized it. It's customized. This is, you know, your keyboard, you know, one of maybe only a handful of, you know, other people around the world that chose to make that same modification, or maybe you're the only one. Anyway, that's why I love the options that both Akko and Monsgeek offer, where you can go ahead and say, hey, I'd like to get, you know, the white or the black base. I think those are the two only colors they have for now. I'm going to guess, this isn't me spreading anything I know, because I don't know anything. But if they sell like I expect them to sell, I'm confident we will probably see at least one limited edition color, if not some more. I'd love to see this in a burgundy, or, you know, like a ox blood red, or a really deep dark, like a forest green, a deep blue, or even a light blue, a purple, a lavender. I could think of a lot of colors I'd like to see them at. But even in black and white, they are very sharp. They're very classy. I think that the white on black really gives that, you know, this is a nice set, that classy kind of gentleman feel, and especially with the sound. Now, of course, like we took a look earlier, we do have plate-mounted stabilizers that actually are quite nice, but we do have support for screw-in stabilizers on the PCB. Surprisingly enough, these they did not follow the trend. There's only IXPE. There's no PET film, which some people really don't seem to like, but it doesn't really seem to suffer at all from the sound. And like I said, I'm going to have two sound tests here at the end, so that you can have a pretty good comparison of what, you know, one setup versus another one. Because, I mean, we've got the same keyboard, but we're going to have a different set of keycaps as well as a different set of switches. Everything else, you know, besides the color is the same, but we have a more, I guess you could say, clacky, although that does have some deep tones to it already as it is. Granted, it is a well-dampened keyboard. It is well-constructed. In my opinion, it definitely has a number of improvements over the previous M1s. Like, here's an M1W, but they'd already made some changes at this point, but this is when we still had that gold piece in the middle. And don't get me wrong, that was a nice accent, but I think it interfered with the design somewhat and was problematic at times. I mean, maybe not problematic, but I know that I secured mine so because they did have a bit of a rattle. Now, granted, I got one of the very early units. Then we have the M1V5, which I thought was a welcome improvement. That's when they first introduced the wider, flatter knob. They did still stick to a two-piece design, but they did change and take out that bar, and we definitely had a much richer stock sound than we did with the previous versions. But of course, this last version was a screwed or bolted two-piece model. With the ball latch mechanism and the fact that we're talking about a keyboard that we can open up and get into quite quickly. We have 3 modes. We have 8,000 milliamp hour battery. We have QMK and VIA. I will be sharing the source to the QMK source tree in the video description. But we have, oh yeah, this is another thing, because the potentiometer used to be part of the main PCB, but now they've actually broken it out into its own board and given it support, so no worries about that breaking or causing issues with the PCB. Obviously, the ball catch system, not only does it make it easier to open, but well-designed ball catch systems such as this one actually help prevent sound from traveling from the top to the bottom. That's why, in my opinion, there's absolutely no need for a force break mod on this model. Whereas on the M1, the M1W, the first revisions, they weren't in dire need of a force break. Like a Keychron, it's in dire need of a force break. It's an aluminum Keychron. Even if they've got the silicone pads, they still require a force break. If not, they're just going to ring like a bell. Whereas the M1s, they still sounded pretty good if you didn't force break it. But if you put your ear up to it, you could definitely hear a little bit of a ring. But a simple force break with any type of thick tape, I usually just use like the medical bandage tape right on either side of the screw points on the both top and bottom case, created enough of a suspension where that wasn't an issue anymore. Now with these, I'm curious why there's no PET layer. Now there's no PET layer in this one. Let me see about this one. I thought that there was. No, there's not. All right, so no PET layer here, no PET layer here. That's one thing that I do find interesting. I agree with all of the changes they made, but I question why they took out the PET layer. I would have left it in, and for those who don't like it, they can take it out. But as long as it was pre-punched, I think that should have been left in, because if we... Now this is the M1V5 that does have the PET layers, has the HiFi layers, both the PET and the IXPE, and this is with the cream blue Pro V3s. And it has that pop, whereas, don't get me wrong, these sound nice. But they're missing a little bit of that pop that I think a lot of people are searching for, where the PET plastic kind of fills that. But so when I come back to these, I want to do same switches, same keycaps, but under one of them, I want to put a PET layer or a plastic layer below the IXPE foam, and another one not. And then we can do a side-by-side comparison and see how much difference it makes, if it makes a difference, and is it a worthwhile mod to do. I've always been a big fan of Akko keycap sets. I actually have, I want to say not one, but 2 white on black ASA keycap sets. They're already loaded on their forever boards. I don't know if you guys have the same thing as me. Sometimes I get a new set of keycaps, I load them up on a keyboard, use them for a while, then I take them off and replace them. I either, you know, take the keycaps onto another board that I like, or take the keyboard on and try new keycaps. But there are just those times that I load up a set of keycaps on a keyboard and I'm like, okay, that's it. Like, tape up the box of keycaps, because I'm not going to be loading these keycaps on anything else. They're just meant for that keyboard. They just work. They're just, you know, I mean, obviously it's just a personal preference, and it's probably arbitrary, but I have a couple of those keyboards that are the keyboard switch keycap combination that I'm just like, yep, this is it. This is what's staying on this. It's like my LK67 with some really tall SA 9009 keycaps and an extra set of arrows from the Akko ASA LA set and a gold knob. And I love that keyboard. I still use it to this day, that LK67. I really enjoyed it. And it's actually one of my, I made a video on how to open the LK67 without breaking the mode switch, because most people were, basically they were doing one step backwards, doing step 3 before step 2. So I just made a video, and that was one of my first like big videos. Like, a lot of people watched it. So I got a lot of views from it. Anyway, I have to say, I'm glad that, well, no, I'm not glad that I lost a whole bunch of footage. I hate when that happens. I do everything possible, obviously not everything possible, but I do take steps to prevent things like this from happening. One of them being backing up my video workstation drive once a day. I think I'm going to move to just backing up a file anytime a new file is created, and that would have saved me a lot of issues. But anyway, I just lost backups, and in the process I also had a primary drive failure. Not to get too techy, basically I lost a lot of footage that I'm now making up for with the 75% video. But since I've had a chance to get to this, I was originally going to include the V3. God, that's how long I've been doing this. But I'm going to replace the V3 with the V5 in my 75% aluminum tier list video, because this is the latest one. The M1V5 has been discontinued. If you can find it, it's obviously going to be from resellers, and it's probably going to be at the same price or maybe even higher. So getting it from Monsgeek or getting it from Akko directly is probably the best choice. Like I said, I'll put links down below. I do believe I have a discount code for both, so you guys can use that if you choose. I really like these keyboards. I mean, Monsgeek has really been a company since their inception. And like I said, I don't know for a fact I haven't, but I haven't also just come out and asked. But for those of us that have been doing this for a while, I'm sure we remember the Mod series. Akko came out with, I want to say it was some of their first aluminum keyboards, and they're like, we've teamed up with the studio, and they developed the Mod series, and we got the Mod 007, which was the 75%, and it went through several revisions as well. I think they actually made a polycarbonate version of that. But shortly after that is when Monsgeek launched. Monsgeek has always provided, for the most part, whether wireless being an exception, but they have the majority of their keyboards, the QMK sources available, they're via keyboards. So being someone who uses Linux as my operating system, being able to program my keyboard, especially just through the browser, makes it that much more, it adds more value to it. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like how the keyboard feels, how the keyboard sounds, but if I had to go into Windows to program it, now granted, most of the times, I mean, the only keyboards I have that don't store on the actual keyboard or store their settings, you know, from remaps and everything on their actual keyboard are 5-6 years old, and I don't even use them. They're packed up and gone away. Every keyboard that I have and that I use I can plug it up to Windows once, set up, you know, my bindings the way that I like it, and then I can move it over to my Linux machine and it's fine. But with my QMK5 keyboards, I can go ahead while I'm in Linux and go ahead and try different. Hey, I've got an idea for a macro. I wonder if this will save me some time, or is it going to be more of a headache, or whatever the case may be. I don't have to worry about, oh, I got to boot up my Windows machine, go through all of that hassle. I'd rather just not even have anything from Microsoft running in my house. But that's neither here nor there. Having the ability to not only go into the source and make changes, I haven't found a need to make any changes, but if I ever did, I have that option. And having that option, to me, I think is what a lot of people are looking for, and especially those of us that, you know, whether we're full-fledged developers or whether we're just techies in general, that open source hardware and software mentality is something that I think is starting to really ring true with a lot more people. It's tied along with the right to repair and, you know, basically ownership over the electronics. So when you have open source firmware and software, you have that option, that choice. So it's very consumer centric, and I really believe in it. But anyway, Akko, like I said, I want to say the Monsgeek team are the ones that came up with the mod series. I don't know, but obviously there were some similarities. But since then, they have continued to deliver very reliable keyboards. I still actually, I have on a workstation that is more of the general family workstation where everybody uses it. I have the first M1. I was just like trying to wonder where it was, and it's, I mean, it gets used practically daily, whether, you know, somebody's looking up a recipe, you know, looking up how far some places, whatever the case may be, because it's in a basically by the kitchen. So it gets used on a daily basis, and nobody has ever come to me and said, hey, this, I practically never use it because I'll just pull out my phone, but it's a little bit old school now, like having a family PC, the family room PC. Everyone's got their phones, but it does get used, and it's had stuff. I mean, not like full cups or anything spilled on it, but I know it's had drops of stuff on it. It's had food dropped on it. It's gone through the wear and tear of your average American family. So, and it's still ticking. Like I said, I barely use it, but I know that if there was issues with it, I would not hear the end of it, and I'd basically just go replace it, then try to fix it, because it's just the easy way to do things when being the head of the family and also the head of IT of the family kind of puts me in a funny position sometimes, but I know how to keep everyone happy. And that's the goal. Keep your family happy. Keep your family IT happy. Anyway, I really enjoy these keyboards. Again, I'm going to, I hate ranking stuff, but I am going to give some scores. I'm giving scores for the 75% keyboards that I'm doing in my tier list video. I mean, it is a tier list, so I guess I have to pick S tier and go down from there. And that's when I'll reveal what I feel after using these keyboards. Like I said, it's been a few days, but I did get to use it on my desk, and I was pleasantly surprised. It's at first I was like, you guys just released the V3, what, 6 months ago, and now you're releasing the V5. I mean, I think they release them in odd increments. I don't know, because I don't know of a V2 and I don't know of a V4. So, but that could just be maybe the even number models are just internal prototypes. I don't know. I don't know how they do things. I just know that I've seen the 1, the 3, and the 5. And the 5 is by far, in my opinion, the best construction, one of the best feeling, most accessible, and just the better one from the series. All they've done is improve iteration over iteration, which is what you're supposed to do. I mean, I hate when, you know, whether it be a software product or a hardware product, and people are like, yeah, but did you get the new version? I keep using, you know, version 3 from 2 years ago or whatever, because that means that something happened where they kind of peaked out at a particular version and then they went the wrong way. Every version should be an iterative process where you take in feedback, which they do. I work with the Monsgeek team as well as the Akko team, and they're people who care about their products. They're people who care what customers think about their products, and they want to make sure that they're producing and designing, making, and putting out products that people want to use, and they care. I mean, they care about their product. I've dealt with some companies, I'm not going to say names, that they just want to make money. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand the capitalist way and everything. And not that, you know, other companies aren't trying to make money, but when they have a heart, when they have a soul, when they have, you know, the forethought to think of customers as real people, you know, and just basically treat them as they'd want to be treated if they were a customer. I think that Akko and Monsgeek, both as companies, with their products and with their support, their presentation. I'm going to go ahead and leave you guys with the stock sound test of the Monsgeek M1V5 in a white and a black. Now here we have the Piano Pros loaded with the shine through cherry topographic keycaps. I think that's what they're called. I'll put links to everything down below just in case. And then we're also going to do a sound test of it in black with the Rosewood switches and the white on black Akko ASA keycaps. I do hope that you enjoyed the review. I definitely am going to come back to these. I probably will throw the M1 V3 in the mix because it's similar enough, except for the case design. I think a lot of the other things are kind of similar to a certain degree, but I want to play around with the sounds, and I want to, many times people ask me, what's the best switch for X? And I'm like, what keyboard do you have? It's like, why does the keyboard matter? It's like, well, the keyboard is part. You're talking about, I mean, not to sound too dramatic, but, you know, this is basically like an orchestra, and you've got your different pieces. You've got your brass, you've got your winds, you've got your strings, you've got different components that are all going to come together, and they're all going to have a different sound. And you can take one of those pieces and put it somewhere else, and it's going to sound completely different. So there is no one best switch for anything. There's my favorite switches, which is a very, you know, subjective list, and it changes, but it's just, you know, it's my preference. I mean, everybody's list should, you know, constantly be evolving, I believe, but some people, I mean, I'm stuck on one particular, I love the U4T. It's one of my favorite tactiles, but it's also the first heavy tactile that I ever used, and I was like, whoa, that's how I want a keyboard to feel. I mean, because I thought browns were the epitome of tactile. I didn't know. I mean, a cherry brown, not a regular, you know, I think a cherry brown's got a little bit more of a bump, whereas most browns are just drunk linears. But that's just my opinion. So I think switches, for the most part, can be a very subjective opinion. Obviously, some are made better than others. I have had a handful of switches that, yes, after a little while, it's like, wait a minute, I haven't even had you guys a month in this keyboard, and I'm already getting chattering, and I'm already getting, you know, double, and I'm having issues, and I know it's the switches because I can take them out, put other switches in, and everything's fine. Put those other switches back, and then there's issues. So it's like, I shouldn't have switches be giving me issues, you know, weeks into using them. But that's neither here nor there. Again, I will share links to both of these combinations, as well as everything that's using across Monsgeek, Akko, their different sites. Whichever one is close to you has better options for shipping. I know Akko EU is definitely, Akko EU and Monsgeek EU They're easier for European customers, and then there's Akko and Monsgeek International, from what I understand. But like I said, I don't work there. I don't know the corporate structure. I'm just guessing. If you have any questions, any comments, anything you'd like for me to cover, either in the 75% tier list video as far as it comes to these, or any of the other ones, or anything that you'd like to see me do or change or inspect when I come back to mod these, because like I said, I'm going to mod them. I want to, before I mod them, I do want to do a comparison. I do want to put a PET sheet below one and then load them up with the same switches and the same keycaps. They may not be the same colorway, but the same Akko keycaps, and then test them side by side so that we can kind of see how much of a difference that PET layer does, or maybe it doesn't make, or maybe it actually sounds better without the PET layer. Who knows? I mean, there was obviously a reason they took it out, and I'm kind of curious about that. So we'll find that out. Anyway, I'll go ahead and leave you guys with sound test of both of these lovely 75% aluminum keyboards. Like I said, start at $89.99, and that's before any discounts. Links will be down below. I want to wish everyone out there in YouTube land an amazing rest of your day, and until the next transmission, keep calm and keyboard on.